we'll hang tight a bit there.
Yeah, that's
right,
great.
everyone, we are live. Thank you for joining us today. Here with Phillip Burton, Preferred Flooring and Tile, with one of the best piece of conference swags I've ever picked up.
Is that our charger?
That's your charger. This is the one that's got the little tags on it.
Look at that.
Yeah. And this stuff here, these are like prison cigarettes in my house. Like they go for a hot market. And I have to write my name on it. Otherwise my kids steal it.
Just don't put it in your prison wallet when you travel with it. If you
No, I won't. Yeah. So this is, in terms of like, I have a ton of respect for good swag. So thank you for that. And it's handy because I charge all the time. So everyone, thanks for joining today. I've got Phillip Burton, one of the best personalities and folks you got to meet. And if you're hanging around the SFR BTR space, multifamily as well, Phillip and I catch up, run into each other over and over and over again, and really lucky to have become a good friend with you and a chance to. Can you hear that in the background?
Yeah. Are they doing more flooring repair?
They're doing more flooring work. I'm going to try this to see if this works better.
This is fantastic. While you're doing that, I'm just going to share with the people listening, as we were getting ready for the call a few minutes ago, there's a guy behind Guillermo doing some stuff. And he's a flooring guy, fixing flooring. I'm like, did you set this up? Like every person you have on, do you have the repair guy with the competitor in there? So I ended up hiring him. By the way. Yeah.
Yeah. No kidding. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, but there definitely sounds like sanding in the background, but not a big deal.
Yeah, he's got a Dremel out and he's cutting out.
I love it.
Flooring, I know. And
he's like, what was great is you said, hey, I'm going to be recording live in like 40 seconds. He goes, no problem. He picks up his tools and he goes and turns on the belt sander. This guy's solid.
Yeah, got to get the job done. He's got so, I mean, fantastic. I apologize for the background noise. I'll try and hopefully we can cut it as much as we can. It's not going to bother me if it doesn't bother you. It'll be just
no, I'm great, brother. I'm good.
All right, cool. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening in. Again, I think when they looking forward to this conversation from a whole bunch of levels. For starters, every time Phil and I get together, we chat on forever and ever about how we help customers' problems and really help us enable this whole industry in providing housing for people and making it available, accessible, comfortable, livable, all those wonderful things. And as always, getting to Hell Yes conversation is a lot about finding customers that are seeking to solve a problem. And that problem may not be directly related to the product that we sell. And this is a lot of the conversation we talked about today in terms of how, or I hope you get into it for today, is how our products enable an ultimate objective and goal for our customer. The challenge is, how do they connect the dots between what they're seeking to achieve and then what we deliver? Because what they're Googling for what they're seeking to achieve might not show up with a preferred flooring alternative, but ultimately we've got to kind of nudge our way into that frame of mind so we can solve these problems. Bill, let's just say, based in Arizona, right? Phoenix?
Phoenix, yep. Based in Phoenix, Arizona. Cover the country for preferred floor and tile. I mean, if you want, I can give you a quick rundown.
Yeah, we'll do that right now. Just an intro. SVP Strategic Partnerships for flooring and tile. Certainly a personality that you're going to see everywhere you go. Wonderful, and I'll say sincere conversationalist. Love everything we talk about. Proud girl dad. And as we always kick this show off, and one more thing. If you have any comments, please put them on the in the chat here. We'll pick those up. And those a little bit of intro about yourself, and then we will we'll talk about the problem yourself.
I love it. First and foremost, I'll say I've been very blessed and lucky in my career to find people that believe in me, right, and give me an opportunity to do what I like to do and to put me in places where my personality and my skill set get to shine, right? Because I'm a big believer that, you know, I'm a smart guy. I can survive anywhere, but I'm not going to thrive if I'm not in my element. And so sort of where I'm at today with Preferred Floor and Tile, the VP of Strategic Partnerships is some, stupid title we made up. It's really just connecting with the people out there that need a solution on their flooring, right? And need a partner that shows up for them every day. What I'm telling people these days with Preferred is I might be the face of Preferred Floor and Tile, but the brand is our people. The brand is the installation crews, the men and women that are out there grinding every day to get the flooring jobs done. Our operations folks that are behind the scenes killing it. Dana, Logan, we've got Andy, we've, just to name a bunch of folks that are out there when I go to these conferences with you and get in front of folks and I have to promise the world, right? Because that's what I want to deliver. These folks actually show up and get it done. So very blessed with that. I'll give you a little origin story on myself. I started in the finance business, right? In the finance industry. Out of college or in college, I was chasing the Gordon Gekko lifestyle of being 20 years old and wanted to make $1 million a year. And, Bud Fox, wake up, money never sleeps kind of thing. And so I got my Series 7, my 63 options trading, doing the Merrill Lynch, dialing for dollars. And I realized quickly there was a lot of money to be made, but it didn't align with sort of how I was wired up, right? I was successful. I was on the right track, but it didn't jive with how I felt inside. And I don't mean this as a negative. This is an attack on Merrill or any of the larger brokerage firms back then. But, a lot of cases we'd be pushing products or stocks, right? Because they're products. We'd be pushing products to folks. And in our own accounts or in the, some of the leadership accounts, we're maybe taking alternative positions and doing different things in our own accounts than what we're telling these folks to do. And it just didn't jive. I didn't like that I wasn't delivering something tangible. I couldn't guarantee results. So growing up, I grew up around the flooring business as my father was in the pad manufacturing business. And I was around all these flooring entrepreneurs. And there were these men and women who had built these businesses after being installers, this quote unquote, got off their knees and started running a business. And they built massive businesses and they were built blue collar on blue collar values. And I saw that and I said, you know what? I went to J.R. McDade, Roger McDade, who was a big company here in Arizona. And I said, man, I just want to sell. I want to sell something that's tangible. He said, great. Give me some carpet samples and gave me a territory and said, go sell flooring, brother. So that's how I got into the flooring business. Started knocking doors in the multifamily space and quickly realized that the carpet samples I was carrying didn't matter, right? Everybody bought the same, or sorry, all the manufacturers sold us the same brown carpet. Back then there wasn't plank yet, it was vinyl. This was 22 years ago, 25 years ago. Same vinyl, same bullshit stuff. And the difference maker was our installation ability and our crews and our heart and soul to show up. So I loved it, man. I started knocking doors saying, this is super cool. Some of the relationships I have today with folks that are owners of these big management companies and presidents of these companies were leasing consultants that I called on back then.
Sure.
Amazing folks. Right. And so I did that with Jared.
You said we're chatting with John Carlson. We were over in,
there you go.
Right.
Yep. That's a name that I would drop. I called on John, I believe it was at Ocotillo in Mesa, and he was a leasing consultant. Now he's, president of Mark Taylor, one of the premier boutique management companies on the West Coast. I mean, John is one of the smartest, coolest guys I know. He's a dear friend, personal friend, but in a business sense, he's just a great guy. And he's moved that company into such an awesome position with his love of data and who he is. But I met him when, I want to say nobody, but he was a leasing guy. I'm just some flooring guy with my little samples and I want to say I was driving a Mercury Lynx or something back then. Something really cool. Right.
Nice.
So those folks are
like the Montego, like the big old one.
There you go. But the Mercury Lynx wasn't even cool enough to be a Ford Escort. That's how bad it was. It wasn't even cool enough to be a Ford Escort. So, that's where I got my start in flooring, and then moved around a little bit. I got an opportunity. This is a kind of a cool story. If you want me to go down this path, you stop me if I get talking too much about.
People want to know who you are. I mean, you walk in, you get this personality, right? We got to frame the whole conversation. Otherwise, it's without an anchor.
I love it. Okay. So this is kind of fun. I had a really good friend at the time that was building his real estate portfolio, and he was just getting his second property that he owned. And he's somebody that I got to know when I was selling flooring. And another company, Ready Carpet, approached me and said, "Hey, we got this management job for you." And I'm like, "Whoa, wow! I want to be a manager, a GM." And I forget what I was making. My salary is like 80 or 90K, what I was making at McDade. And they're like basically going to double it. And a little bit of a little bit of profit share or something like that. And I was like, whoa, this is big time. And it felt like the right thing to do. And I went to my friend, his name is Ken McElroy. He owns MC Companies. And he's written several books with Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book series. And Ken was just getting started back then. And he's like, hey, I can't really, tell you, if it's a good deal or not a bad deal, but it sounds like you're going to double your salary. He goes, but I do have an opportunity. We could talk about it. He goes, I'm just building this up and I could bring you into the company and teach you asset management, teach you what I do. I can't pay you what they're paying you, but man, I could give you a real opportunity. And, maybe you get a piece of the deal at some point. Like it was that golden opportunity. And I said, no, I had a little family. I said, I got to take the job, but man, this is exciting. Wish you the best of luck, Ken. Fast forward now, I think Ken has $3 billion in real estate investments or something like that. And so one of Ken's favorite things to do is remind me of that conversation when I passed on that opportunity 24 years ago. And the person he hired, not because I said no, but she ended up, I think, stepping into that role, Leslie Bryce, ended up being a partner and an amazing person. She helped build that company with Ken, and she's doing really well, by the way. And so the two of them really like to highlight that decision-making on my part to pass on that deal. But Ken is still a very dear friend and a mentor in my life, and somebody I draw upon when I have decisions to make. But I took the Ready Carpet job, got into management. I learned a lot about how to run a business, the P&L of a flooring company and how that works in our margins, and enjoyed that. And then I've just kind of ping-ponged around through that business. In 2004 or 5, I left Ready to go work for a company named Heritage, which was in single family sales on the for sale side for the upgrade stuff. And then 08 hit and everything tanked. I think they went from 450 million a year in revenue the next year to like 80 and then to 0 for the most part. So they got wiped out and I was looking for something to do and took some time off, started my own little consulting company where I did some upgrade colorization for apartment unit turns, things like that. And then I got back into this side of the business with Interior Logic Group and then I've just kind of moved around from there. Currently with Preferred Floor and Tile, I work for David Stoffel is the owner. And I'll tell you, he is the main reason why I'm at this company. One of the thought processes I went through, and Yvonne Kenny was there when I made the jump too, and she had a big part of why I wanted to work for these guys. And what it was is being connected to an entrepreneur. The company I was with before for 9 years, Interior Logic Group, amazing group, wonderful folks. They sold to Blackstone in 2019, and that big corporate animal was becoming very obvious and not a negative thing for them. It just didn't jive, as I said before, with kind of how I'm wired up. And so getting connected back to a serial entrepreneur who cares a lot about the end product we put out and how we connect with the folks that are trusting us with their money. What I love most about it with David is if I have a customer facing issue and I need an answer now, first of all, I'm empowered to make most of the decisions, for the most part. But if it's one that it just is outside my wheelhouse, which is rare, I just pick up the phone, have a conversation, and it's done. And almost always, if it benefits the customer, the answer is going to be yes, because that's how we're wired up. So, that's sort of a fast track story. There's some fun things we can interlace in there later if you want, but that's sort of the origin story of getting to where I'm at today with this opportunity. And I believe in these guys wholeheartedly. I wouldn't be here if I didn't. I'm in a good position where I've done well financially. I've taken care of my family. We're in a position where, you don't have to take the job just because you need to pay the bills. And being here is by choice because I believe in what we're doing and what we're building out.
So, we talk about like the problem that we solve, right? So this is how we kind of introduced the conversation, how you and I have chatted around the flooring side of things. And obviously flooring is like right? In every single unit.
It's a shit show.
It gets wear and tear. I mean, like you said, most of it's either vinyl, linoleum.
Yeah, it's like luxury
LVP,
vinyl plank, your click
LVP.
plank. Yep.
Yeah. All those kind of things they're a lot more robust than they used to be with respect to flooring, but it is something that gets beat up a little bit. Now, as we chat, you mentioned Yvonne, like as we chatted about some of these like part suppliers, like, of course I'm getting some work right now, but I'm not seeking to, rent this property or it's not blocking from revenue. It's a pain in the ass.
Sure.
Not having it fixed was a pain in the butt. For everyone listening, I had no floorboards or no, vent covers, which is a pain in the butt. And the good timing in the area with install it right at this moment. So when we talk about the problems that people are seeking to solve, in my case, it looks terrible and I don't want stuff rolling into the vents, which is a pain in the butt for multiple reasons. But the problem that people are solving and why they reach out to Preferred is beyond getting flooring, because you can buy flooring at Home Depot, right?
Yep.
So why are they seeking out? And then again, like even your role, it creates a curious conversation, like strategic partnerships. Like, why does it need to be through preferred, and why does it need to be strategic?
Love that. The short answer is because of our operational excellence. It's not me. It's not Sierra, who's one of the other salespeople, person that I work with, who I love, amazing. Brian Watkins is another guy on our sales team. Incredible. Kyra Felix, who does our marketing and is in sales with us now and helps manage some sales stuff. Wonderful people. But it's the men and women out there that are putting this flooring in that are solving that need. Almost always when we are interacting with a customer on the SFR side or multifamily, I'll speak SFR mostly for this call. It's they need it better, faster, cheaper, right? And usually you can't get all three together. We try to produce all three. But the better part is what we focus on. It's showing up on time, making sure we show up with what we need, getting the job done on time. Like you're a perfect example of what you've got going on right now. You know, if that guy showed up a half hour late or an hour late, he's in the middle of your podcast behind you doing work. You know, you just left for work. You didn't have time to meet him. All that stuff throws a wrench in somebody else's plan, right? And we really pay attention to that. What I like to talk about, and this is not, you know, a marketing thing we made up. This is how I've always approached this business. And it goes back to multifamily. We're entering somebody's home, and that's a sacred space. And whether it's an occupied repair, which is way more important to us because we're actually interacting with that homeowner, or it's vacant, but it's getting ready for a renter to come in, I'm interacting in somebody's home. And if I don't show up and do what I say I'm going to do for these companies, some single mom or dad or family that is expecting to move in on Saturday, if I didn't show up on Friday, they got to push and they got to move in on Monday. And now they got to get a hotel. They got to pay for the U-Haul. You know, it just adds extra layers of BS. And beyond that, they might not have the money to afford an extra day U-Haul. I've been in those situations. I've been that guy that used my last bit of money to rent the U-Haul, and I better return it by noon the next day. Otherwise I'm getting charged and the debit card's not going to go through. And I'm like, holy shit, if something interrupts my plan at all, the whole house of cards comes down. And so we think of that with our men and women that are out there, that there's some person downline that's going to be affected negatively, not just the customer, the big corporate animal, right? Some human in a home that matters to us. So that's the main driver of what I think makes us different. And I will say this, we have some great vendor partners in our space. I don't call them competitors. RM is a good example, Right Rug, Real Floors. These are all folks that when I see their name pop up on a bid list or a competitor, or they're in there as a vendor partner, I'm like, hell yeah, there's your hell yes, because I'm glad they raised the bar for me. I do the same for them, and we're showing up giving a good product to these customers that value us.
Then how do you, like you spoke about the orientation around the resident, right? How does that become a competitive like positioning statement, right? Because it's easy to say customer, your customer, and in this case, your customer first, right?
Yep.
You're talking a fee or an owner. Like, how do you make that the win factor?
Yeah. So what's cool is our, and this is a great question. I love this, by the way. Our customers, our partners out there make it easy for us because they create scorecards. They're evaluating our every move, and their KPIs are driven by, their scorecards are driven by the KPIs we've created to show up to get that scorecard. And so they'll tell us when we're not performing to the competition and allow us to get judged against that. People look at it as a commodity business because we're buying a product and installing it. It's a service industry. The power in this business, the value, our companies are, like I said, the men and women installing flooring, and that service is the value. That's the sell. And if I want to say what differentiates me from some of the other folks, not those names I mentioned because they get it, it's the folks that look at it as a commodity business. Like, hey, here's your plank and it's $1.25 and that's the best price. And, you can get this all day long. And, so what if we don't show up on time? So what if we might have to wait a week because we don't have the product in stock? They think that's the value. The value is looking at a guy like Andrew Boone and having a conversation with him. And he says, all right, I'm going to introduce you to 5 markets. He's putting his name on the line for us at Tricon. And the men and women in the field, Chris Gaffney and some of the other folks that we deal with, are like, hey, I'm telling my folks, you're going to show up. And when you don't, it looks bad on me. It's sort of like the old mafia thing, a friend of mine and a friend of ours, like you've been invited, you've been invited into the group. And when you fail, you're failing a whole group of people. And so, for us, that's how we show up differently. And we have to prove it. I think to answer your question a little bit more specifically, actually, this doesn't matter. It showed up.
It's an opinion, right? We're all the best.
Yeah, I'm a good sales guy. I can talk your ear off, right? I'll tell you everything you need to hear if I need to. If I'm in that position, that I can do that, but I try not to. I always ask, just give us a chance. Give us a few installs. Throw them at me at the weird times. Don't tell me you're going to do it next Tuesday. Just say, hey, this market's open. Throw us some installs. We'll make sure we got the product first because that's sort of a thing in our business. But let me show up and I'm not going to stack the deck. I've done this for years. With AMH is a good example. When we got the opportunity with them, I didn't tell my teams, hey, exhaust every resource for this one install because we got to get it right. I just put it in the queue and said, let's see how we do. And thank God we did well. And we showed up. And I tell people this all the time, and it's become a tagline for us. We're incorporating into our marketing, but it's actually how we've sold our business in the past is, if I don't make your life easier, don't use me. Meaning preferred, like, our service. Yeah. If we're not showing up, making your life easier in the field, there's no reason to use us because there's 10 other guys that can.
Yeah.
So that's what we hold our teams. The standard to our teams is, this is what we're telling these folks. So you're in the field, you're the boots on the ground. You got to show up and make it happen.
So we had Kelly Brooks on a couple weeks back.
Oh, I love her.
Yeah, she's a beauty. And she was talking about how, like, what I didn't know too much about Property Masters is that they've invested significantly in like internal infrastructure and IT so they can do what you just described. So, and I recognize it can be a lot of hard work to get these moving parts and pieces and people into all these different spots to make sure the job's done correctly. I'm living it right now. And, they chose to compete on that, right? And to a point that's their part of their brand, is that, do you feel the same thing, or do you see? And I thought that was, so I'll frame this before we drop the question, is I thought that was a pretty unique positioning for given all the people I've talked to. Like, a lot of people tend to bitch and complain about the products, the software that's available, prefer built their own. Now, I don't know if building your own is the right answer or not. That's what they did. And like, when you guys seek to compete on coordinating these moving parts, these moving people, and these moving markets, how do you do that and deliver at the same time? Because we've got less people, we've got supply chain shortages, and logistics, by the way, isn't an easy thing either. Not to mention, if I hit a window, that has to be hit, right? It's like checking a pass in a cover 2 defense, right?
Right.
Feel like Archie Manning on Saturday. And so, like, how do you guys do that? And then again, how do you prove it so that you can use it to win work?
Yeah. So I'll go back a little bit too. You're spot on with a few of your insights here. Interior Logic Group, ILG, is the company I worked for before that sold to Blackstone for a very big number, one of the biggest numbers in flooring, in the flooring biz. And they built their business on dealing with the for sale new construction market, the Taylor Morrisons, K. Hovnanian, all the builders, the big national builders, Pulte, they did with all of them. Yep. And back then, when they were building out their business, it was that same decision of like, how do we get sticky? What's going to make us different? They could pick anyone. There's flooring guys everywhere. They went to technology. They built their own internal framework that then became a part of each one of these design centers that they would then partner with the builders. They'd actually own the design center and then let the builder use it to colorize and build and to upgrade their homes. They became sticky through technology to such a point that the builder couldn't leave. It just didn't make sense financially. Even, when they wanted to, play tough and say, hey, we're going to price you out. We're going to do this. Like, great, go ahead and rebuild this with the other guy at the tune of, $20 million. You just don't have it, or you don't want to do it. So they became partners in the technology and they became sticky because of that. On the upgrade for sales side, it works because there's a lot of different products and you make your money on the higher end upgrades and stuff. In our world, because it is commodity driven, there's not a lot of room for that move. But on the operational side, our scheduling, our communication, making sure we're measuring, I will say the biggest opportunity for any of our companies is on the measure software side, the LiDAR stuff that's coming out. Seek Now has some really cool things they're doing.
Yep. Right.
Proxy Picks, Lucas there is doing some cool stuff. There's a bunch of other companies, but showing up and getting 3D scans of these houses that tell you all the measurements, all your products, everything that's in there at one stop is sort of the future, because it saves time, money, and gets these guys through their turns faster, because they're not waiting on me to send a human being in most cases to go out and measure. So being on top of the technology is huge. And that's where we're trying to move with the pack. I would say we're not ahead of the pack, because you don't need to necessarily innovate there. It's just a matter of making sure we're showing up and delivering what the market is expecting.
Well, one of the things that we talk about when we're talking about tech, right? I mean, acknowledging that, and I said this in the show before, there's kind of like 3 ways to solve any problem. You can hire for it, you can vend it, or you can use tech and process, right?
Yeah, solve it that way.
So, right. And the easiest way is to hire it. That's kind of people's first choice. And then you kind of like try it out. In a world where we don't have that many people, like there's scarce resources to do these kind of jobs. And recognizing that vending it is, given that the regionality of these markets, you're kind of competing in the same market if you were to hire, it's the same people. So then you kind of land on technology and process as a way to do it differently, right?
Right.
And so like when you take a look at what you guys are using for technology and process, like especially if you're competing on service, like getting all those things right in a row at the right time is your brand.
That's it.
And so how do you find people? This is kind of the getting hell yes part, that matters to. Like, people buy on price, people buy on service, people buy on innovation. And so like given those 3 different competitive lenses, you've talked about how you guys compete on service. So how do you make sure that your buyer is looking for a service outcome?
I think that starts in the introduction phase when you're meeting folks. Like when I'm sitting down with a procurement manager, a decision maker, whether it's regional or national decision maker, a buyer, I'm having those questions to find out, what's important to them. We call them the big 5. We know the names: Progress, First Key, AMH, IH.
Yeah.
I forget, did I miss someone in there? Maybe Tricon. Sorry. They all have kind of figured it out. They have a similar idea now. I will give AMH credit. I think they were first to the party with understanding that automation and that technology and how they can solve for a lot of these issues that were creating problems for them. And the rest of them are quickly, if not, coming online or eclipsing them now with some of the stuff they're doing. I'll give Andrew Boone a shout out at Tricon. That guy is a wicked smart dude. And on top of what should they be doing now to plan for the next 5-10 years so they can be successful with the growth that they're going to see. And technology has to play a part of that. So having those conversations with them of, hey, what are you looking for? Do you just need me to show up and knock out some flooring and get it done for you because you're throwing lipstick on a pig? Or are you looking to partner with someone that can be innovative and, invest in some of the technologies together with you that are going to move us both forward? And my vendor partners that I mentioned before, we all kind of fall in line with that because we see it. We see the same future they do. And I'll give you some examples in multifamily. And I don't know the stat off the top of my head, but there's 4 million apartments out there, whatever the number is. It's a big number, but like it's big. There's 16 million rental homes in the US. And we all hear this when we listen to Dave Singlin or any of these guys talk at these meetings. There's only a few percentage points in institutional management.
Institutional management.
Yeah, 2 or 3% now. So call it 300, 400,000 units, whatever the number is, of 16 million in the pool. So where this is going, where it is now to where it's going, there's lift and runway that's massive for all of us. So they're going to carry all of us with them because they all want to hit that first million home mark. That's their goals, right? And just like multifamily back in the day, they're all growing together. And as a vendor, we're going to grow with them. So if we partner with them on technology and are able to push that forward, that's where we become sticky and partnered, and we'll continue to develop with them.
Well, I think what's interesting from an outcome perspective is that the private equity dollars, and we spoke about your Interior Logic experience, like it's really chasing a lot of these, call them conventional businesses, trade HVAC, installations heavily. right? I actually kind of halfway through writing an article about this whole change, because what's interesting is that from an operator perspective, who we sell into, they're looking to hire first to solve these problems. But now they're recognizing that you're not only competing against kind of the old school HVAC company, now you're competing against Blackstone for talent.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
That has a whole building full of analysts and people that can say, wait a minute, you got this little problem. Let's go have these 80 people look at it and figure it out. We spent $32 million on payroll to get it figured out, but we don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we've got like literally, it's like that, all the money on the planet Earth is behind these companies. And so if you're looking at competing with maybe Phil's installation company, you probably can beat that on a talent's perspective, because maybe you can offer something different. When you're competing against Blackstone, you're competing against, BAM, Brookfield, right? Like, have fun. Like, they can hold their breath just way longer than you can.
That's
and
it.
So like, understand that competing the old way is not going to work anymore. They're going to beat you, right?
Absolutely.
And so we talk about that talent conversation, saying, okay, so I'm kind of halfway through writing an article for the week around like, hey, I'm actually, because obviously we make a case for centralization, right? You should centralize. And it's one thing we're trying to do as we head into budget season is actually make a case for the status quo. And the intention is not to be satirical about it. It's to be really like legitimate, like why you shouldn't change, the case against change. And like invest in that thinking, because a lot of people we talk to, change is happening to them and they're not even aware of it. Like the frog in the boiling pot, it's gone from like, 97 to 98 to 102 to 103, 104. It's just kind of going up degree by degree, and it's on its way to 217, but they don't know it yet. And so we kind of have these conversations, especially around budget season, around, hey, look, is this right? Like, is this your reason for not changing? Like the case against change? Because like when we take a look at the people that need to be hired to do the work, which has an impact on the outcome that you deliver with respect to timing, if it's not core to the technology, we're just wasting resources that are precious.
100%.
And that's part of this whole like, and it's been really breath of fresh air of last probably dozen or 24 conversations we've had on the show. There's been an emergence of technology is a strategic asset or enabler or amplifier, or how do you want to call it, accelerator.
I like that word, amplifier. It's amplifying what you have to make your ingredients, your people, much more effective.
Because if you don't have it, you're going to be wasting those precious resources.
That's it. And I will say, in our business in flooring, there's still a very much a regional component, because you still are in like Atlanta, or I'll use Phoenix because I can give you cities. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, but Globe, Arizona might have a property in that narrow way, and I still need to get flooring done for someone there. And that's going to be one dude up there that's got chucking a truck that's going to go get it done, because I can't support that area. It doesn't work with our infrastructure. So the need for regional people is still there, but having a network of folks that gets smaller on the national scale to then you just use your regionals as needed is where this is heading. It's economies of scale. They don't want to have to deal with 52 different vendors in the same category. They want 5 or 4. And being able, this is where technology is kind of cool. We call it third party 3PLs. You can leverage a little bit of that and say, hey, we're a national player, but we've got access to some of these smaller folks regionally to support your ancillary needs in these markets that are tertiary, right? And that's where technology can help. I'll use, and this is not a knock on Seek Now, because I think they have the same thing, but I'm just going to give Lucas at Proxy Picks a shout out. He's got a network of, I think, 140,000 people out there, sort of like Uber, that if I need a measure done in my world, and I say, hey, I need a measure in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I have nobody there, no warehouse, nothing, but I need to know what the flooring is in this particular house. I need it in 30 minutes. He sends a text out, just like Uber, whoever's close, that they've been vetted, they know how to measure, like he sends it out the criteria. Somebody shows up at that house, sends back measurements with their LiDAR, they scan it, and I can have those measurements in a day, a few hours if I really, really have to. That's unbelievable, because in my world, how that happens now is, I got to call somebody. at my local branch. They call Hector or Jose or whoever, say, hey man, can you get out, stop doing what you're doing, drive over here, measure this job, throw a tape down or a laser and give me that kickback measurement. That might happen today. It probably will happen tomorrow if it's intraday. That sort of technology is badass and we can leverage that. And it's the, it's the Uber of measuring is what I call them. I don't know if you
otherwise you wouldn't take that job in Baton Rouge.
No, and let's say I still can't do it because I don't have people there to install currently in that market. If that's the case, I can still give my partner, my customer, hey, here's what the flooring is. Here's what I would price it at because I kind of know the market. And then they can reach out to whoever they're going to use there, mom and pop, and say, hey, I need this job done. And the guy's charging you, $50 a yard. No, that's bullshit. I know I can get it done for a lot less than that. It applies a little pressure. It's that I call myself a trusted advisor. If I can't do your work, I'm still going to help you with the best possible outcome in that market and be a partner to you in that. And that's where technology's badass.
Yeah. And that's a strategic partnership, right? Because you're coaching them and advising on the outcome they seek to achieve.
Yeah. Call me and ask me a question. I'm here for you. This ties back to what we started in the beginning. I don't do this for my love of flooring. I mean, I love flooring. It's cool. Every time I walk in somewhere, I'm looking down, right? But I do this for the people that I've met over the years. I've built, John Carlson's a good example. There's many more, Robert Hicks, and I can name, 10 people that are dear friends, Ken McElroy, that I met because of this business. And my life is enriched and better because I know them as strong people. And that's what the business has given to me. Now it's given me a great livelihood. I do well financially. The money side, is part of everyone's decision, but I can actually go somewhere else and make a lot more money in what I do with what my skill set is. I know that the flooring marketplace is not there's not a lot of money we're all chopping up, right? Unless you own the company, that's a very lucrative business to have. But the people you meet and the trust that's generated when they say to you, hey, I'm handing you this problem, to your point earlier, I need you to solve it. And I trust you to go get it done because they're trusting us with their livelihood because it's the renter that's affected. It's not Andrew Boone when I don't show up at a Tricon house because he's probably not going to hear about it. His local guys are going to deal with it. There's some renter that's going to be pissed and they're going to yelp the shit out of Tricon that they didn't show up to do my flooring. When it's not Tricon, it's me. Yeah. I take that real personal.
I find the interesting thing around that whole commitment and then obviously the partnerships is that you're able to build up, that gives you license to build up markets that otherwise wouldn't have been accessible to you. That gives you license to be able to serve that Baton Rouge home, and maybe things build up around Baton Rouge, and maybe all of a sudden there's a market growing in Shreveport, maybe somewhere in between in Lafayette there's something to do, and then all of a sudden you build a business around that first gig that you help somebody out on, right? And that only happens by having the information, right, that you're able to deliver value on. That gave somebody the confidence to solve their own problem. And so it gets into the LES conversation of how you choose partners, right? Because the partners that you're choosing have a consistent problem that needs to be solved, and they consistently trust you to help them solve that problem. And as a buyer, you don't really want to be dealing with stuff that you're not really good at.
100%. Stay focused. We get asked to do all kinds of stuff, and we've been pretty good, or through the career that I've had in the companies I've been with, we've stayed pretty focused. We're flooring guys. We're going to do your flooring. Now, what's been interesting in some of the changes, as these companies grow, they want more of a one-stop shop. And so some of our partners are saying, hey, you're really good at doing flooring. Could you guys do blinds? Do you think your installer base could hang some blinds? It's really simple. There's, it's this, that, and they've got the product. They've got the availability to purchase it cheap because of their scale. Do you think you've got the manpower to put it in? With us at Preferred, this is where I'll toot my own horn a little bit in our company. Because of the partnership we have with our sister company that is one of the largest labor-only flooring groups in the country. We are the largest only. Sorry. I can say that to anyone else out there that wants to say that. We're the largest labor-only flooring company in the country on the other side of our coin, on the flip side of our coin. And I have access to those folks. Now, those folks do a lot of that stuff. We do framing, we do blinds, we do window stuff, because our partners there, our customers have asked us to show up and do that. And we go to our labor pool and say, hey guys, I know you've been installing plank, but do you think you could do this? They go, hell yeah. What am I going to get paid? Great. I'm a skilled contractor. I can do whatever you need. And so we work into it.
And for them, this is the thing we talk about when we're selling all the times. They're trying to minimize the trips.
That's it.
Like they,
Get
because
paid
ship time
more
is
for one stop.
exactly, it's unproductive time and it's killing everybody, right?
Yeah.
And if they're back and forth, they don't want that. So they want someone to give them the measurement, to give me the job to do and let me do it well, set me up for success.
Yep.
And if you can make my wallet bigger by adding on the otherwise share of wallet, then I'm even more endeared to you as a vendor partner, right?
Yep.
As a labor partner.
And then that end user really, the smart ones are digging into that hard to lower their number of contractors, give them more to do each time they're at that house, to your point. And, you know, the challenge is always getting them to realize they can't skin the cat so tight that we can't make money. We have to make money. We have to keep the lights on. You got to pay the folks like a fair wage. Right. And
otherwise you get crap installation and they pay for that in the long run.
That's it. And if you address all those, and that's where, you know, I think us and a few of those other partners are very palms up. I'll tell any of my customers what their margin is, what I'm doing their work for, and what the GP is. If they think I'm living high on the hog at that, you can leave us tomorrow, because we're not. You know, it's the market is pretty consistent in what all of us operate our businesses at. There's only, you know, we still have to have folks in the warehouse cutting carpet, loading out plank. The installers still have to get paid. If they're doing floor prep, they got to get paid for all the little things that they think are, why are we paying for that? You can't get rid of all of that. You can get really efficient on how you buy material, how we show up with it. If we're warehousing it or not, labor only is a big thing moving into our market, into SFR. We're all about it. I do not want to have to make margin on your material. I don't care what you want to put in. I truly don't. Like we're product agnostic is what I like to say. Mohawk, Shaw, MSI, any of those products that you want to buy as a customer, please just tell us what you want us to put in. We know how to do it. We'll give you the labor cost for that. If you want to go buy your own material, drop ship it to the site, we show up and put it in and never have to touch it. Hell yeah, let's go, brother. Right? Let's make it happen. And the companies are trying to figure that out in a way that is going to work for them and us. And it's happening right now. I won't say names, but some of the big companies are testing some of those markets, some of those ideas in certain markets. And it's fantastic. It's what we built our whole other business on with some of these other bigger clients. We don't make or touch or do anything with the floor, with the product itself. It shows up to our warehouse the day of or day before. We just take it out and install it, and we charge just the installation. And
so it's interesting. And so, like, to think about the business, right? Like, it's I mean, pouring and tile, but it's like you're limiting your profitability to the service piece, and that makes it easier to focus on the service piece. It makes it easier to promise the service piece, especially when you offer up transparency on the product pricing.
It's the most critical part.
And maybe there's a rebate, maybe there's something like that happens, and that happens in all types of businesses. But if you're able to, I'm just taking in terms of like getting a hell yes, right? Like if folks are seeking to solve a bundled, you know, they want a product and materials kind of like discount or whatever, that's the wrong company. You guys are looking for people that their number one challenge is I need to have my unit available. And flooring is obviously, and my resident uninterrupted. Like that's kind of like the table stakes. That's what they're seeking to solve for. So unit available or resident with least amount of interruptions. You know, I'm living through one right now. And so if we can achieve those two things and align those with their P&L or even OpEx objectives, P&L meaning the revenue is being driven because that unit, that door is being rented, or from an OpEx perspective, meaning I'm not paying for all these unproductive trips back and forth because the information wasn't available at the very beginning. And there's probably even a third lens to it is your 1099s that are doing all the work. Like they're making money too.
That's it.
Right. So it's like it's the spinning plates of the customer, the coordination that you charge. You make money on the coordination of it all. And then the 1099s need to make money as well, because then they stay within the family.
That's it.
Back to the New York Mafia story. Right?
And you really allow your customer to your the group, the industry itself, right, to become the buying group. If the SFR, all big five SFR companies start to, you know, consolidate a little bit their SKUs and their product and what they need, and they start dealing with the manufacturers in that way, they come together and bring a much bigger stick than I do as preferred, trying to buy for one of these guys and going to Mohawk or anybody and saying, oh, I'm going to buy this little, couple million feet for this one guy. And you've got a company over here buying 20 million feet. They're going to get the better price. So when you start to consolidate the buying group, which is what they're trying to do, they're going to drive their price down on the product, which is fine. They're not going to beat us up on price all the time and trying to make that up.
Right.
The market for labor is what it is, and we can be transparent with that and share with them and show them what mark we need to make on that labor to manage the warehouse, because there still has to be a place to drop material. They still have to get loaded out somewhere. When the future gets to it's being drop shipped directly, it's job packed and drop shipped directly to a house, then maybe our warehouses can get smaller and we don't have to do that. And we can, shave some costs that way. That takes time to unwind what the system is now, but working with them to get there is what we're involved with right now. And it's amazing. And the value is the labor, the installation quality, how we manage those men and women, showing up and doing what we say we're going to do. The product itself is sort of ancillary, or it should be ancillary.
Sure, yeah, because it's irrespective to what the service, the value that you're selling.
Plank's plank, man. If I hand my guy a brown plank or a gray plank from MSI or Mohawk or Shaw, it's all the same stuff. Now, I will say this because I have good partnerships with my vendors.
Sure.
I keep naming the same three that are solid. They all compete against each other. Gina Brundage with Mohawk is one of my dear friends. She's badass as a partner that folks reach out to her. She's a good vendor partner to have on the material side, because she'll show up and gets things done for you. So that's where like the product itself at Mohawk might not be exceptionally better than a Shaw or an MSI, but she's going to show up and be that person for them that helps facilitate a better experience or a better price. Same thing with MSI or Shaw. They have their folks that are, when you're dealing with them, you're going to get the truth. You're going to get apples to apples. And then as a vendor, as an end user, Tricon, AMH, any of these guys, they can then decide what that spec is for their particular product and what they want to produce, standardize that spec. All we do is show up, put it in, but we'll make sure that spec is what it is too when we're there putting it in. Because there's bait and switch in our business that happens, not with any of the companies I mentioned, but some of the smaller regional folks. And this has happened recently. It's just because a carpet looks like it's 25 ounce and it's XYZ, I can hold one up that's 18 ounces and $1 cheaper. And if I'm putting that in all the time and telling you it's bait and switch. And there's a lot of that happens on the smaller side, not with the big companies, none of the reputable companies, RM, Right Rug, us, Real Floors, Ready, none of those.
And that's part of the interesting conversation, right? Is that the industry is getting, we had this conversation with Greg the other day, with Greg Frank, and around like the industry is facing some legislative headwinds because people aren't happy with the success that's happening. Right. They feel uncomfortable about it. And as Greg and I chatted, like not entirely sure why, because we're solving a housing problem that is going to solve itself, or make people not allow people to live in homes. And like the ability to coordinate the resources to solve that problem around housing is interesting for the big five, right? Because they're the educated buyer. You just mentioned how like an 18 ounce and 20 ounce is very difficult to understand for the eye of the beholder, the uneducated buyer, especially if you're never going to go inside that rent.
They're never going to see it. Yeah, their field is going to walk in and go,
"Yep,
looks good. It's swept. It's it's vacuumed. Whatever the thing is, they're not going to know. You would have to, in a lot of cases, this is how deep it gets. You'd have to send both cuts of that carpet off to a lab and have them tell you if it's not the same thing. Plank is similar with its bells and whistles, whether it's, the wear layers and the different bells and whistles that go on into it to make it more durable. You wouldn't know unless you get it tested. And so you have to have a partner you trust. And this is where the bigger companies versus a small mom and pop, and I'm not bagging on all the regional guys, the smaller ones are probably more willing to roll the dice because they're losing a smaller piece. If they lose it, they weren't going to keep it anyways because the big dog was coming. Us, if it got out that we were doing that, we lose a business. Our business is over. All the companies stop using us.
Like what's interesting about this industry right now, and specifically the SFR side, and it's reflective of what's inside the multifamily piece, is that because of this long tail of ownership, right? So we said 16 million, 14 million units or 16 million doors out there for SFR. And we're adding more on the BTR side, like
It's crazy.
that
Yeah.
looks a lot like BTR. And we're not going to lose some of these SFRs. So we're actually creating, it's not a recapturing of existing homes that are built. We're picking up homes from Pulte that end of quarter needs to be picked up. We are building new communities specific BTR. But like what's interesting is that the long tail of it, the sub 50 units owned managed, they're the ones that are part of the same conversation, like it or not. And so the quality of the installation, the quality of the experience, it's unfortunate, but that is, of a 1 or 2 or 50 home owner in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that reflects on Invitation Homes, that reflects on Progress, Key Home, and everybody, right? So it's like, because they're all just home rent landlords. So it's like what you're describing around the problem that you solve and how you guys solve it with respect to this kind of like an institutional solution for institutional buyers. Like, I got to ask the question is that, I'm sure you'd take a deal with a 1 or 2 or 3, but like, is that really where you're going to play? Or do you really would rather play in the, let's say, top 10s?
Yeah, it's so as we grow our business, right? And we just had this conversation last week with our sales team. Like, everybody wants to hunt the whales, and they're important. Yeah. The big 5 are important. That's, our businesses are going to scale with them, and you have to be in their ecosystem. You have to be somebody they trust. That's my entire job is there to build trust with those guys, so they'll allow us the opportunity to grow with them. That growth comes slowly because you are chopping up amongst 3 or 4 other companies. Usually, the idea of exclusives is gone. Nobody's no one company in IH or any of those guys is going to say, "Oh, RM, you're our only supplier across the country. Here's 50 million a year in flooring sales." They're split it up because they know that RM, not because of their quality, just because just their size, can't handle it all. Neither could we. We're probably more equipped to handle it all. If you want to give it to us, we'll take it. But no, having 2 or 3 national players that play well together, cover the market for you. Everybody gets a third-ish or whatever, performance-based, 60-40, whatever you want to call it. And we grow with you is critical. In the short term, there's still these smaller players that we can focus on regionally and go get them and grow our business with them as well. So we're building the foundation to supply and support the bigger growth with the large companies. So they're very important. And what happens, and I think this is going to happen right now with somebody, a small player, and I won't say the number of homes, but it's good size, but it's not on par with the big dogs. Their scope of work is less, right? They don't do as much to turn the homes because they're smaller. They're going to get bought by one of the big. I think it's coming any day, in my opinion. Whatever, that portfolio is going to get bought up, and because we're their supplier, hopefully, when they get bought up by the big dog that we're already a part of, they say, "Oh, you've already been doing that work. Great. We're not going to switch you out, but we're going to add our scope into it, which is 10x what they've been doing, and our business grows just because one company bought the other." And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. So positioning ourselves to be available to the smaller mom and pop, so to speak, management companies is important too.
If they're looking to compete or to solve the problems that you solve.
Yeah, if they need us, right?
If they're coming in to compete on, and let's say you talk about pricing, and just in terms of like innovation, pricing, and service. If they want to buy based on price, like that might not be an indication of a good fit, because the cost of making a mistake for a 50-unit buyer is maybe those 4 that are up for grabs this month, right?
Correct.
But like if it's IAH or Procter, any of those guys, like the cost of making a mistake, and I'm saying from the buyer's perspective, right? Like, what should I think about? Like, okay, why would they buy from Preferred? Why would they not buy from Preferred? What is the risk that they're taking by selecting Preferred as their vendor for this problem? Like, it's easier. The size of the mistake is bigger.
Yeah.
If it's Progress, right? So if you're talking like an MSA type of arrangement, not a onesie twosie, like a flow of business, and so they're buying for different reasons. Like, I'm a buyer from Progress. I'm seeking to de-risk my decision.
Yes.
By choosing Preferred. Whereas, like, if because the decision might be my career. Whereas if I'm a onesie twosie owner, I'm just trying to get it cheap so I get someone in there.
And they flip you out all the time.
Yeah, because they might not even have a recurring enough business that they don't even know to ask for you over and
That's
over.
it. And that's a challenge. That is a challenge for us. I'm so wired up to say yes. Like that is my world. And I don't, to turn down any business is so difficult for me. And this is what we talk about all the time. I have folks, this happened Friday. Hey, can you do business in, God, I want to say it was like Poughkeepsie, New York or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, sure. Let's figure it out. Cause they were a big player. And then I reached out to a couple of folks like, no, we can't do that. Like it doesn't make any sense. And I called them back. So, you know what, honestly, I just can't make that work. But if we get the infrastructure there, if you have forecastable growth, maybe we can talk about it. But right now I can't. So they're going to continue using some small, either mom and pop that's local, and they're going to pay more, and they're going to deal, the big company knows they're paying way more than what my flooring would cost them, but it makes sense to still use that mom and pop because the impact is so small on their overall organization. You start talking about 10 or 15 markets and your price is more, then you're impacting their top line. And
it's a different problem.
Yeah.
Right. It's 100%. A different problem because like, it's not, how can I run these 50 units? It's how can I grow? We're not in Cincinnati right now. So how do I get into Cincinnati and how are we going to grow in that market? Totally different problem. It's interesting to have these conversations because what on the surface might look like people, people time materials, but it's actually enabling their ability to deliver on their growth objectives. Because somewhere there's a map of the world or the US. It's got, here's where we're at. Here's where the markets, here's where the incomes are going up. There's a talking to Kelly. She's like, all of this. Like, here's where incomes are going up. Here's where mortgage, where housing is not available. Here's where we're going to put in we're going to activate
infrastructure.
Infrastructure. And with that kind of line of sight into the economics of the whole thing, people are going to rent more homes. And so we're going to make an investment in that space. Okay. Now we've agreed we're going to go into Cincinnati. How are we going to do it?
That's a question every time we have a call about a market. We ask for their forecast. Like, what have you done? What are you going to do? And it's hard because they can't predict as well. Like none of us can predict what our businesses are going to do. You can throw some parameters around it and try to guess, but really it is guessing. And if they can give us enough feedback that we can then frame around that, what that growth potential looks like, we'll invest in it. To your point, we'll add infrastructure at our cost to be in that market to support that future growth. But we look at it the same way. What are the trends? Does it work for what we've seen in SFR and BTR to expand those portfolios? A lot of times we're not going to innovate in that. We're going to be asked and brought in because our end customer, the end user is already going to be saying, hey, we need to be here because we're buying 5,000 homes in this market. Great. We can expand with you and be prepared to put flooring in those homes if we know there's 5,000 homes coming online. We're not going to say, for the most part, we're not in a position to say, hey, we're going to drop some infrastructure in Cincinnati because next year you might be ready. We have to react to it and proactively be prepared because it's too costly for us. Our margins are so thin. This is something that I do want to get across on this call to anyone listening. In flooring, we operate on high volume, low margin, even though it seems like there's a lot of money in our business because on their operating budget, their expense for us is huge because flooring's expensive. The margins are tight. So because you might be spending millions of dollars with us on flooring, we don't make $1 million because we make a GP based on that million. And then we have to pay a whole bunch of infrastructure beyond that to get it down to, it is a single digit EBITDA low net business. And if we don't operate efficiently and make good decisions, we will lose money very quickly. And we have that with some of our bigger players where we're losing money in some markets because they've asked us to be there, to be able to be in a bigger market. And we'll do that because we do well with them, but we're very upfront. You ask us to go to Cincinnati and we're not making any money, I don't know that we can. Unless you can increase our volume in Tampa, where we already are, and we're only getting a third of your work. If you grow it there for me, I can offset the loss here. So it becomes that.
It's a joint venture.
It is. It's a venture partnership.
Yeah.
You're in it together because you're making decisions, and they're doing the same thing with a few other partners, and we love that because there's enough for all of us. But yeah, high volume, low margin, and I've called it the first bank of flooring for so many years because, especially in multifamily where I came from, hey, Phillip, we spent $5 million with you last year. We're kind of hoping that you can buy this yacht and take all our people out, like $100,000 on this party. I'm like, I didn't make $100,000 on your $5 million revenue on the revenue I sold to you. And they're like, well, that's impossible. We wrote you a check. I go, yeah. And then here's where it all went, so, it is it's a very interesting business, but there's so much trust required. There's so much partnership. And that's where, getting back to what drives me here, that's what I gig on, man. Like that, when somebody looks at me and says, I'm trusting you to go do this for us and help us push our vision forward by using you guys, man, I'll stand shoulder to shoulder with that group anytime and get it done.
So here's what I've heard today in terms of, I'll try and kind of wrap to recap, is that, the person that you're seeking to sell to, so you're in the business of service.
Correct.
Product is kind of like, it's a variable.
Yeah.
And your best, the best in the world is the service and the service coordination, along with your 1099s, W-2s to get the job done. Your perfect buyer is someone who's looking to scale or operate at scale. So seek to scale on a market or operate at scale. It's a lots of zeros.
Yes.
Because if it's ones or twosies, that might not be economically effective for both people. And if it's a single transaction, then that might not be effectively effective for you're not going to be the yellow pages, right? So to speak.
Yeah. 100%.
You're at the transaction level. Okay. The problem you solve for them is reliability, predictability, getting that flooring done so that unit can be, the unit is either rentable or it is there's the least amount of interruptions into the resident. And then second to that, your 1099, your vendor pool, labor pool, they rely on a continuous pipeline of properly priced jobs so that they can make profit, you can make profit, your customer retains profit. You're probably not going to win a deal on price. I mean, it's going to be the price that's relative to the scale that's being bought. Like, you're going to be price competitive, but the problem they're trying to solve isn't the lowest price per square foot. It's, I need to get these units ready.
Yeah.
And so that's what they're paying more for.
They're conscious of price, but they realize like these big companies are their procurement folks, the Andrews of the world.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And Jose at AMH, these guys know the market. They know what stuff costs. They know what my labor is. They know what the margins are. And so, I've had this happen. I've had good partners, and they're all good partners, but I've had some really good ones that I've priced a new market, and I shit the bed. I didn't know it, labor wise. I know the material always, but I didn't understand the market of the labor, so I was way low, and I put a price in, and they came back and they said, "You're 30% lower than anyone else pricing this out." Who does that? Most companies, to your point, the smaller ones would say, done, you got it, we'll take it right now. And they just won, right? These guys were like, hey, I think it was 27% below the two other guys we asked to bid it. And so you made a mistake because they're very close to each other. We know you're usually in line, all three of you. Go back and look at your numbers. And I found the mistake. I was like, oh shit. Now they actually gave us a chance to raise our price to be at market, because they know once we're all three at market, what are they going to evaluate us on? How we show up in our service.
Isn't that beautiful though? The clarity around what their decision-making criteria is. Like, it's price. They have an openly acknowledged that the what we used to call it, and the functional requirements are equal across the non-functional requirements that you compete on. And that is, from a procurement perspective, and having dealt with procurement forever and ever, like, they need to make sure that their evaluations are equitable, especially for some of these publicly traded ones, that there's an equitable evaluation of the selection criteria. And then ultimately that is transparent, and they get to choose based on the length of the partnership, because they're going to get, if it turns upside down.
Yeah. Who's going to show up and do it better? They realize that just like we need them as a customer to give us business, they need us to show up and put that flooring in, because there's no one else that's going to do it. They can't teach their on-site folks to do it. They can physically, but they can't manage all the stuff around it. So beating someone up on price so low that they can't make money, that they disappear. That theory, that used to be the way people conducted business. It's gone. It is, what's market? Can you all be at market? What's fair? And then how you show up, and can you deliver at that price? And we've seen it with the same group. All three of us came in low, or, whatever the companies are using, and they realized we were putting way too much pressure on the installation group. They weren't happy. They weren't showing up great. They weren't performing well because they're not getting paid to market. They can go over here and make, 25 cents more a yard or whatever, a foot. And they realized that they were hurting their own product. And so they allowed us to raise rates as a group. It kind of told us what market was, or we were telling them. So we all raised rates. We didn't collude. It was, we knew, and installation got better, and they kept their quality to their renter, who's their customer, up. It's beautiful. It's how these businesses, when you get palms up, transparent, whatever colloquial cliche you want to use, the business gets very efficient and gets real good because you're just sharing best practices and working together versus, I'm really trying to hide my product. Like, hey, I buy this brown carpet 9 cents cheaper than this guy over here. No, I don't. My labor's X, carpet's Y. Here's what it costs to put it in. Will I show up on time? Hell yes, I will.
That makes it very interesting. We'll dig on that in a separate conversation. I just think it's so, the names of these companies and the functions that they deliver, are often, very different in terms of the problem that you solve, right? And then how you go about solving it can be different company to company. And I think what's interesting, what you shared with us today when listening, is that, while listed as a flooring company, right? How you compete isn't on product, it's on service. And then the margins of the business, I mean, it's people and trucks, chucking a truck.
Yep.
And those things have a price associated too, because like the one thing that we're learning about labor right now is labor can make a choice day to day. So they can choose to not show up.
And they do.
They have the power of choice, right?
Yeah.
And so if you have a trusted service network that will show up on time and do the job right the first time, you have an ability to solve the problem for your buyer, which I'll characterize as institutional buyer, who's looking to de-risk the decision making. Because like if you're an institutional
I love that term,
buyer,
de-risk. You've used it a few times, and man, I am going to steal that from you because that is the term. It's how do they know that they can just trust that you're showing up, taking the risk out of what they're giving you to trust, in their portfolio. That's what it's about. It's that you're going to make my life easier. I'm de-risking this decision by trusting you to go do it. It's
and so when people talk about like multiple vendor consolidation, I used to be in the vendor business. Like we talk about de-risking the decision on managing vendors. And here's the story. The story is if I've got one vendor or maybe a consortium of vendors, I have a throat to choke. If I'm managing 50 vendors, I'm the throat to choke.
That's it. Yeah. That's perfect.
And so I would prefer to de-risk my throat by putting that on the 5 vendors.
Yeah.
And give them the flow of work rather than trying to celebrate that I got, a dime less than per square footage, because that's actually not the problem I'm trying to solve. I'm trying to solve the problem around my career, my job, my 401k, all that stuff. It's not about that transaction. And it's interesting to kind of dig in on that because like the people seek to de-risk. And it's like, how
human
can I make that
nature?
easy
Like
for you?
we don't want to put our head in the chopping block, right? In the guillotine. What's the term? A zero-sum game, right? For me to win, you don't have to lose always. And I think that's the old school negotiating tactic, the old style.
That's a Gordon Gekko. That's
right. Like that's what I came from at Merrill and that group or that industry. I shouldn't point out Merrill Lynch specifically.
That way.
But that industry, and that is opposite of what we do. It is a win-win proposition. And I'll butcher this, and this isn't a Yvonne thing. I want to give her a lot of credit for I think she created this in our group, but it's like the 3 legs of the stool: the company, the employee, and the customer all have to win for this to be a really great decision. If 2 of the 3 are there, but 1 isn't, then it's not a great decision. You all have to come out equally, or, it has to be some sort of win for all 3 of those stakeholders in order for us to move forward and make it a really good decision. Because if I price something and I get all this business, but the customer's service is going to lack, it's not a win for us, even though we're getting all this revenue. the customer's not going to come out
Yeah.
okay. So
Well,
we really,
it's expensive revenue.
yeah, yes, it's costly because you're going to end up losing it down the road. But all that comes from what we're doing right here. And I have this level of conversation with those decision makers and their field folks. It's that trust, it's that communication, it's picking up a phone and someone knowing, like I call myself the easy button, right? You've got great field folks that are showing up doing the job for you, and that's who you're talking to every day. But when something gets awry or there's an issue, you pick up the phone and you call me. You just send in the wolf. You don't need to worry anymore, brother.
Yeah.
It is over, right? Like that is not
Yeah.
your worry anymore. It is mine, and my team's on it. And by my team, I mean the hardworking men and women of operations that show up and make me look good.
Outstanding. When you look back at your career and where you are today, maybe someone who's a younger Phil or the person who's coming in for today, what's a bit of advice you give people or you're trying to live by so that they can be successful, you know, and
study harder in school and go be a doctor. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
Man, I love it. I would say, just be authentic to yourself. My journey, and I was chasing somebody else's dream and I was chasing money. I'll be honest. And this, my dad passed in 2020. Everything I did as a younger kid was to try to show him that I could make more money than him or his friends. He had some very like these, these folks that sold to Blackstone. These are all family friends I grew up with, entrepreneurs. And I was always trying to show him that I could make more money than anyone he knew. Terrible, right? Because I wasn't doing things for me, and it's not his fault. That was on me. That was a Phillip Burton thing. But through my career, I was always chasing that. And it wasn't until a few years ago that I realized that just showing up and being authentic and being me and doing things that matter to me and my family and not chasing the money is where the value's at. And so like my boys who are 26, 27 and 31, those are the conversations I have with them, is truly just be authentic to yourself, show up that way in everything you do, and all of it will come. If it's money or whatever you want, you have, those things will eventually produce themselves if you surround yourself with the right people and you show up authentically to who you really are.
You know, it's interesting, a couple points on that. So I sensed in the kind of like, as I was kind of coming to close the conversation, I wanted to ask you a question, but I felt I would have sought the answer you just gave us in terms of authenticity. Because it seems to me the kind of like crisis of conflict that you had in your previous career in finance, of zero sum, I'll say any zero sum game environment,
right,
is not what you're best at. And so you're Phil Burton's best in the world is a 1 + 1 = 3 kind of environment, right? Not 1 - 1 = 0. And so like those are different kinds of people in the world, right? And
they
so
are,
you,
they're valuable, but
well, they have to exist, right?
It's not me.
It's
I always
not you.
joke, Guillermo, this is so funny. I always joke so I'm really good at negotiating on behalf of someone else, our company. When I'm in the room with an Andrew or a Jose or Josh Ritter or whoever, I'm solid. I got it. Put me in the room. You want to give me the game ball when the game's on the line. But if I'm negotiating for myself, I'm terrible because I have that win mentality. And then I like start thinking, well, that's not authentic. And so I get weird. And I joke, like I was just going through this discussion with David and some other stuff we're talking about with our business and some things. And I said, next conversation we have, I'm hiring an agent. I'm not going to show up in this room because you two are really good at what you do. And I'm not good at this side. So I'm going to hire someone. Maybe it'll be Pat Osmond to go get money on my behalf, because I think he would do a better job at negotiating for me in that environment, because I'm not good at the me part. And it's been very interesting to kind of think about that, because that's how I'm wired up. I don't do well getting for myself, but I do well for others.
I just was at my cousin's place on the weekend, and it's in the room here. I don't want to open the door, but she told me to get this book called Your Money or Your Life.
Okay, I've heard of that. Yeah.
And it's about what you're just describing it. So I actually had it shipped this morning and got it here because I want to go read it, because it is your money or your life. How are you going to spend your time on earth? And so it's interesting about what you just described, because it's not uncommon.
That's our business plan, by the way. We're going to start an agency where we negotiate for our friends and go get them more money in the jobs they're in, right? Like, hey,
because because you're negotiating for your friends, you can walk away.
That's it. Like,
right. And the BATNA's there, right?
And I think you articulate them in a way that doesn't come off as conceited. And because there's a fine line. Like, I'm a very confident guy. I don't think I'm cocky or conceited, but it can show up that way when the confidence is there. And I really try to balance that. Like, my ego has been my issue in the past. I was chasing money, right? The Gordon Gekko bullshit. So when the ego really starts to show up, I got to make sure that I'm tempering that with the right amount of confidence that doesn't just become, crazy ego guy. And in a negotiation for yourself, your ego's just tapping on the back of your head like, you're not worth it. They're telling you you're not worth that. They're not going to pay you what your value is. Leave, and you're like, oh my God. And really you value that partnership. Like, I'm going to speak for David Stoffel and JJ and Rob Humiston, who are the guys I report to, and David owns a company. They're amazing people and they're super fair. And I have a great job and I have a great situation. But anytime you're going and asking for more or asking for change or whatever, it just is a weird deal. And everyone gets on this like posturing, like they got to win or I got to win. And now I look at it like, I am so happy where I'm at right now. I love what I'm doing. Like anyone, I always want more, but when is the time for that? And what does that look like? And that's the partnership and the conversation that we all constantly have. And, even with our customers, they always want less, but they realize you can't always have less and continue to get better service. So it's just a discussion. And that's the authenticity piece. Being
I think it's
that.
Well, and they understand the whole package, right? I think a couple of things that this conversation reminds me of is I came across this quote from Teddy Roosevelt. This is about like maybe six months ago. And it's something I always believed in, but it's kind of like, and this gets you authentic conversation, is that, and Roosevelt talks about, and I really hope it is him because I tend to misquote sometimes.
I won't fact check.
Is that comparison is the thief of joy.
Totally. That's a Teddy Roosevelt quote. Yes.
And then I take a look at you. There's no comparison in that game. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, and just the presence of who you are and what you bring and the authenticity of the Phillip Burton conversation. I would also, and if people haven't picked this up from the call, I mean, the desire, the sincere desire to help other people. It's just in your makeup. And it's something that just oozes out of you from the very first time we shake your hand in Nashville. So thank you for coming on. Thank you for being authentic. And I think that it's interesting that everyone hears the conversation about the fit that you found with your current or with preferred in terms of what you seek to do and love to do, because being authentically Phil creates the value for the organization and all your customers. And those are hard to replace.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
Thank you for all that. Thanks for sharing on all your stories today. I really appreciate that. And there's tons of lessons in this conversation, and I look forward to seeing you soon. I think. Are you going to BTR Dallas?
BTR Dallas. I've got the NRHE Carolina kickoff deal, right, or the show there. Then we have Atlanta. So it's like for the next 5 or 8 weeks.
Yeah, I'll see you in Atlanta. I'll see you in Atlanta. I'll see you in Dallas. I'll see you in probably NRHC. They've got a second Dallas show there, the Tech and Vendor.
Right.
And then there's Phoenix in December.
How important, and I know we're kind of short on time, but how important are those shows to shake hands and look people in the face? There's so many companies that forget the value, and I'm a big supporter of NRHC. I love and believe in what they're doing. They've given me every opportunity to grow this career and beat the people I want to meet. That's where you press the flesh. That's where you get to see people in person. There's nothing like it. And being able to join and be a part of those organizations are critical.
They've been very helpful for us. And I would say to kind of the masthead of this conversation is the problems are what you solve aren't necessarily the things that you sell.
That's it. Yeah.
You don't really figure out the problems that need to be bought until you talk to somebody and you're able to hear, they get under the first layer of what they want to achieve.
And you do that by having a conversation. Like I've had plenty of people I've talked to and after, we'd be sitting at a dinner and they go, we don't even know what you do. I said, that's okay. I'm getting to know you. Like I'll call you next week and tell you what I do. We get to know real people. And then you find, to your point, you find a problem to solve if there is one. And if you don't have one to solve, you don't need to manufacture it. You can just be friends and partners, because eventually they might need you. And if not, you still won, because you build a connection with somebody in our industry that betters the group.
100%. And you can provide recommendations, which is what Trusted Advisor does.
That's it.
Thank you, Phil.
And to your point on this call that this was live and I didn't know it was going to be live, is I didn't ruin your career and my career today, I don't think, because this was amazing. I was like, okay, I'm going to blow it up. Here we go.
No, we'll leave those career ruining moments to after 2 a.m.
Exactly. I love it. We'll do that at the bar.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Phil. Thanks for everyone listening today. Appreciate. Thanks, Earl, for your comment here. Outstanding, everybody here. If you are listening on LinkedIn Live later another time, tag the show. Phil and I will get notifications. We can jump in there, or sorry, just make comments. If you're listening to the podcast, obviously, or YouTube, please follow and subscribe. It helps more people find the show. And for everyone else out there, thanks for joining today. Phil, thank you so much for just like bringing your whole self. Wouldn't expect anything else. And everyone, have a wonderful day. Welcome back from Labor Day. It's budget season. Enjoy the rest of your week. Take care. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate y'all.